Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining me for episode 4 of season 2 of Inside Track with IFPRI. I'm your host, Katarlah Taylor. At the heart of fulfilling IFPRI's mission to provide research based policy solutions that sustainably reduce poverty and end hunger and malnutrition are more than 600 employees who work in over 50 countries and play critical roles in responding to the demand for food policy research and in delivering holistic support for country led development. In this series, we introduce you to a few of our colleagues and we ask them to give us the inside track on how they are working, some of the work that they are doing, some challenges that they may be facing, and ultimately what they hope to contribute to a sustainable future. We invite you, our LinkedIn Live audience, to join us by submitting any comments in the questions section, and we will turn to them as soon as we can. Joining me today is Abdallah Cisse, who is a research analyst with IFPRI in our Dakar, Senegal office. Abdallah, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Katarlah.
Sure. So let's start right at the beginning. Can you tell me a bit about yourself, where you're from, and a bit about your academic background?
Thank you, Katarlah. I'm Abdallah Cisse. I'm a research analyst in the Africa division based in Dakar. I was born and raised in Dakar. Dakar is a beautiful city, characterized by a great diversity when it comes to culture. We have a lot of uh, ethnic ethnic groups, uh, and Dakar or Senegal, if I can say, as a whole, is well known as a country of hospitality. Growing up as a young man, I was always passionate about science. I loved maths and physics. I studied science at high school, and I was at Sayyidina Imamulai High School, where and after passing my baccalaureate, my scientific baccalaureate, I had the choice between electromechanics and statistics. I chose statistics because it was a multidimensional, cross-cutting discipline. We can apply statistic in every possible field, in agriculture, in finance, education, in health. Wherever there is data, there is material for a statistician to work with. So I joined the National School of Statistics and Economic Analysis, where I started an engineering degree in statistics, and at the end of that degree, I did an internship at the Senegalese Institute of Agricultural Research. Then I went back to the National School of Statistics and Economic Analysis, and during that second to do an engineering degree in statistics and economics. And
Mhm.
during that second degree, I did an internship at the Executive Secretariat of the National Food Security Council.
So, thank you for sharing a bit about your background with us. But I do have a question. You noted that with your degree, particularly with the statistics focus, that there are
Mhm,
so many fields that you could pursue. So, how did you
mhm.
decide on an organization like IFPRI, or how did you even end up with a focus in food security and agricultural research from with that academic background?
Thank you. I think for us African countries, agriculture presents a lot of challenges because we kind of have that same situation, that same observation. For many countries in Africa, we have a lot of our real population who are involved in agriculture, but when it comes uh, to to uh, the percentage that as they are contributing in terms of our GDP, it's still very low. If we take the example of Senegal, we have about 60% of our real population who are involved in agricultural activities, but still can these agriculture still can manage to contribute only at 16 to 17% of our GDP. So the challenge of agriculture uh, made me. The challenge of agriculture in Senegal made me choose that field. Uh, During my first engineering degree, as I mentioned, I have an engineering degree in statistics. In the last year, there was a specialization in agriculture, and as I said, given the context of agriculture in Africa, I did that specialization, and and I did a specialization in agriculture, and I learned a lot about uh, value chain analysis, about many things related to the agricultural field, and I was very passionate about one thing in particular, value chain analysis. So I always had this in mind. Uh, I always had that in my mind before going back to the National School of Statistics and Economic Analysis, continuing with a second engineering degrees in statistics and economics.
Mhm.
I always kind of know that I will end up in the agricultural field. That's why I did the second internship in the executive secretary of National Food Policy Council.
Okay. So when did you join IFPRI? You said you talked about the internships. How soon after that did you join IFPRI? And you
Right.
touched on, you said that you were always passionate about value chain analysis. So can you
Mhm.
let us know what that is, and tie that into how some of the work that you're doing at IFPRI, and if that was a factor in you joining IFPRI at all?
Okay. First of all, about how did I join FPRI? Just after I graduated from my second engineering degree, just a little bit to highlight the difference between those two engineering degrees. The first one was engineering degree in statistics. It was more about theoretical aspects, had a little bit of technical aspects. It's a little. It was more about technical aspects, has a little bit of theoretical aspects as well, but the second degree was more about theory. It was more about theory and also has some technical aspects as well. So just after graduated from my second engineering degree, I saw that offer from IFPRI, which is an international institution which work involved in the food security field. So I decided to apply to that offer, and here I am a year and few months later. Now about the value chain analysis that I said I was passionate about. First of all, to define value chain, we'll say value chain is a process of analyzing a chain of activities to determine which activity has added value and which activity does not has an added value. And uh, talk about my work in FPRI, what I will it, since I was really passionate about value chain analysis, working uh, with IFPRI was logical for me. And when I joined IFPRI, I worked on a project involving value chain analysis. I work on two main projects: the GCAN Fund survey, the gender sensitive climate resilience agriculture for nutrition project, and also the integrated agricultural group project for in the Great Lakes. And that was the second project which about the value chain analysis. We studied four value chain: cassava, milk, rice, and fish. And it was basically about doing the mapping of those value chain, mapping the flow of product, the cash flows, and studying the relationship existing between actors in the sector, and also estimating the added value for every value chain. Let's take an example of a value chain. If we have, for example, the millet, we have the gross product millet, which is produced by farmers, and we have the final product, which is, for example, millet flours, which is bought by household in order to be consumed. Now, what happened during those two steps? We have two steps. We have the gross product and the final product. What did happen between those two steps? This is what we are trying to figure out when we are talking about value chain analysis. What are the activities that happen in between those two steps, and what are the actors which were involved in between those two steps? This is what we are talking about when we talk about value chain analysis. An example: if we have 100 kilo of millet, for example, which is produced by farmers, those on those 100 kilos, 10 kilo can go to the consumption, self-consumption. 10 kilo can be lost because maybe lack of adequate storage facilities. 40 kilo can be sold to to processors, those who are doing the transformation. Then 40 kilos can be sold to intermediaries. And now we will follow up on those 40 kilos. We will follow first on those 40 kilos sold to processors, those who are doing transformation. What did they do with those 40 kilos? And did they directly after transformation, did they directly sold it to the market, or did they store it a little bit late to sell it a little bit later? So when we are talking about value chain, we are trying to track the products through the process, through those processes. How do we get from the initial product, the gross product, to the final product? What happened in between those steps? This is basically what we are trying to identify when we talk about value chain analysis.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. And so, to sum up what you're saying, you want to know everything that happened from the time
Right.
the farmer produced it until
Yes.
it ends up at the household and what happened in between. So, then to take this a bit further, can you tell me, once you find that information out, what is the hope in understanding that process? What is the outcome, or what do you do with that information? Are you looking perhaps to identify if there's a farmer who maybe dominates the market? What are they doing right? Or are you looking and perhaps to help other farmers to say maybe if you shift this, or I don't know what. Yeah,
Yes.
what's the outcome of that research of understanding that chain?
Yes, that's exactly what we are trying to do here. After having those information about for example, who detain the power in the market, who's the most efficient in the market. If we look at the various farmers, we can identify those farmers who contribute most, who have most success in terms of their activities, and we can identify them, their characteristic, what type of seeds are they using, are they using improved seeds, what type of fertilizer are they using. All those kind of settings, all those kind of thing information could be shared with other farmers who couldn't do as well as their fellows. And this information can also be useful to the government, who can set up policies based on that, can for example subsidize seeds, or orient population to consume some or other products. It's really the kind of information that can come out of the value of a value chain analysis is really diverse, and it can be useful to farmers, to produce, to processors, to intermediaries, to the government, and also to the population, because in terms of nutrition, uh, some information can be added about what are the most healthy products to be consumed, and what are the product to avoid if you want to keep a good health.
Okay. I think that's quite interesting. You were talking about the fact that you joined IFPRI as a research analyst,
Mhm.
and again, we've gone in depth about what a value chain analysis is. So, can you tell me a bit more about what your workday looks like as a research analyst? What does that entail? You mentioned some of the projects that you're working on, but what
Mhm.
does a day to day look like?
As a research analyst, my work is centralized about data analysis and data management, data collection, designing tools, designing application, producing reports. As I mentioned, I work on two main projects: the GCAN Fund Survey, which is gender responsive and climate resilience agriculture for nutrition, and this was basically phone surveys uh, that were launched in various countries in Africa, and also in some countries in South Asia. We are trying by that to identify, to study the impact of COVID-19, uh, and also the resilience of household to that pandemic. So we run a few rounds as I said, in many countries in Africa, and also in many countries in South Asia. But our role was to supervise two countries such as Senegal and Niger. So we did 4 rounds for Niger and 5 rounds for Senegal, and between those rounds, we had 1 month apart, and we will be doing a follow up on the on indicators to see how, for example, food securities and indicators has involved over the time. Every time we did a round, we will collect the same indicator to do a monitoring of these indicators. And now we have the Peak Agile project, the Integrated Agricultural Growth Project in the Great Lake, which is a project in Democratic Republic of Congo. I already talked about it when I explained about the value chain analysis. Now, what's really exciting about my job as a research analyst is the fact that as IFPRI is an international institution, I am working on many countries' data sets, and I can learn a lot about other countries just going through those data sets,
Mhm.
just doing those analyses on socio-economic, socio-demographic profiling. It's like sometimes it's like I'm traveling through the data before, without even moving from my computer. It's really exciting to be able
Mhm.
to know about other countries just going through those data sets. And you can even learn more about Senegalese people when you go through Senegalese data sets as well.
I think that's a really a fascinating way of describing what you're doing, right? Because I think some people would be inclined to say, "Well, you're dealing with data all day." That could be obviously it's very labor intensive. The attention to detail matters, but the way that you describe it as the ability to travel through countries through looking at data and understanding more about their projects, about your own country and other countries where you've obtained a bit about the data about the people, how they're living. I think that's
Mhm.
a really interesting take on data analysis, and yeah, I think now I want to explore that as well. So, what about the responsibilities that this job entails?
Yes,
Some of the things that you're talking about, they have
yes.
real world implications for people's lives. How is
Yes.
that?
Yes, it's also really motivating to have those responsibilities. As I said, we running those surveys. We usually recruit a survey implementer in another country, and we were in charge of supervising their work. And that kind of responsibility, that kind of charge is really motivating, and it's really interesting as a young research analyst to be able to do this kind of work, to supervise and to collect the data and then analyze the data and then try to give some useful information which could be used as policies.
I Thank you. So, you were talking about at the beginning how you ended up in this field because of what you know of agricultural challenges
Mhm.
throughout Africa and in particular in Senegal. So, can you speak to what you see as some of the broader sets of challenges that you're facing in Senegal and also in the region?
For the challenges in Senegal and for the region, as I mentioned it earlier, agriculture is very challenging for African countries. And when I said that we have that kind of same situation in many countries, we have a lot of people who are involved in agricultural activities, but still, when we look at the contribution to the GDP, it's still very low. And I gave the example of Senegal, when we have 60% of our real population who are involved in agricultural activities, but still we can only manage to contribute to 16 to 17% in our GDP. So these kind of challenges are real and are present in Africa and in Senegal, in Africa as well, and in many other countries, uh, such as South Asian countries, many developing countries, I would say it like that.
And so, is there particular, so it sounds like, is it an issue of efficiency
Mhm.
in the ag sector? Do you see potential there I imagine you do, why you've gone into this field. What are some of the things that you think can be done to address these challenges?
I'm really thinking about new technologies that can be introduced to agriculture. It can improve efficiency and productivity. I think in developed countries there is the use of artificial intelligence. Can be drone are used to get images on land, and resolution images can be analyzed, and based on those analyses we can deduce the diseases, the plant with diseases, and we can quickly identify the location of diseased plants, and we can try to exterminate them, exterminate them, for them to not spread to all the land. Kind of things like that can really improve the productivity if we are able to analyze quickly the data and to act quickly, more quickly before a whole land is damaged. We can do something about it when using artificial intelligence. I know also in developed countries they are using machine learning models to forecast the weather, and also there is a use of big data to because more and more we are collecting data. At some point we will have a lot of data sets, and the more data you have, the more accuracy you will get when you are doing some estimation. I think I'm really thinking about those new tools to introduce to agriculture. And nowadays we talk about smart farming. We talk about smart farming because of all those tools, all those new tools that could be introduced and could be useful when it comes to increase productivity or efficiency of
Mhm.
the of the production.
So, what do you think the field is going to look like, or what do you hope it will look like in 15 to 30 years? You were talking about the potential
Mhm,
for artificial learning, et cetera. So,
mhm.
yeah, what do you hope changes in the next 15 to 30 years?
In the next 15 to 30 years, I expect to have more models, more approaches, more methodologies. Uh, as I mentioned, I hope we will introduce those new tools. I just mentioned big data, artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think those new tools can really be useful in the next 15 to 30 years to really work on the productivity of our the productivity for our farmers to improve on that and try to make agriculture a big contributor when it comes to our GDP for our respective countries in Africa.
I see that we have a couple questions from our audience tuning in. And one person is asking if you can share some about how the work you've been doing has contributed to improving livelihoods. I think you were especially mentioning
Mhm,
this project where you're monitoring over time the impact of
mhm.
COVID-19 from month to month. So perhaps you can tell us a bit more about how that's in real time improving or seeking to improve the actual lives of individuals.
Okay, thank you for this question. Uh, as I mentioned, there was this GCAN phone survey project. We done a lot of we learned a lot of surveys through Africa and some countries in South Asia. What we were trying to study there was to study the impact of COVID-19 and the resilience of household. There were many topics inside those questionnaire. We try to talk about education because of COVID-19. Some children went back home, and after COVID-19, did they go back to school? We try to study those kind of things when it come to education. When it come to health, we were trying to see if the households had issue after COVID-19. The main person who were bringing the the revenue, was he able to continue what he was doing, those kind of thing. It was more about impact evaluation, and then after the source impact evaluation, policies could follow up from the government. I think for Senegal, for example, there was a lot of foods were distributed in Senegal. For the case of Senegal, there are other countries also who are distributing foods during the COVID-19 period of time. Uh, those kind of things that always can evaluate the field, what is wrong, what can be improved. Those kind of things is what we did with the chicken fund survey, and then the government can jump in and put on some policies to help to help household improve their livelihood.
Thank you.
And
I think, no, go ahead.
just to also mention the other projects, the
Mhm.
PICAGL project, the integrated agricultural growth project in the Great Lakes, the value chain project. With that project, we were able to identify the value chain who are more contributing in GDP of the country. We are able to identify what activities are more contributive in terms of value added, and we determine the relationship between the various actors. I think this kind of information we can help farmers, for example, to see where what did the other farmers that succeeded, what did they do right, and they did not figure out yet. This kind of information can help farmers also in the government place. The fact of finding out what are the real problem. Is there a need in financial services? Is there needs in uh, capacity strengthening? Those kind of things can really help the government orient their policies and help locals in improving their livelihood.
Thank you. You know, Abdullah, you noted you're at the beginning of your career and you're
Mhm.
already engaged in a lot of uh, very impactful work. And so it'll be interesting to see where you go over the years to come and how you're able to help shape the field. And so
Mhm.
thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today, where we get just a brief look into what it means to be a research analyst with IFPRI in the Senegal office. But before we leave you, I just wanted to ask you just a personal question more about you talk about being from Senegal
Mhm.
and just being known for your hospitality. What are some
Mhm.
of the things that you think stand out most about Senegal that you want to share with us, or some of the things that you
Uh,
personally enjoy? Yeah, just tell us a bit more about the personal side.
I Personally, I think what's really standing out in Senegal, I think it's our food. It's our food because last week our national dishes has become a UNESCO heritage, has entered as a UNESCO heritage last week. This is something we are really proud of, and other countries like Nigeria try to steal to steal that meat from us, but we still we kind of have it back. We kind of have it back, and I really that's something that's really enjoyable about Senegal. We are a country of hospitalities. We like to share foods, and we like to welcome everyone.
Okay, so I am not going to get into that national wars. So you can fight that out with our Nigerian colleagues. But Abdullah, I just want to say thank you so much again for joining us and giving us a look into what your day is like as a research analyst. And I want to wish you happy holidays, and those of you who have joined us for two of Inside Track with IFPRI. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Katarlah. Happy holidays also.